Wonderful. Great. Well, I'm delighted to be here with you, and you heard in the introduction, for many years, this is all I did with NCR, go around the country putting on this program. And, you know, it's a funny thing about life, but if you do a particular job, other people look at you and they wonder about why you do that job. For instance, I was getting ready to go away on a program one day, and my next-door neighbor saw me leaving. He was over in his driveway, and he hollered over. He said, "Hey, Ira, where are you off to?" I said, "Oh, Ed, I'm going down to Jacksonville, Florida to do a show." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Gee whiz, you're just down in New Orleans not long ago." I said, "That's right." And he said, "And I know you're up in New York City not too long ago because Carol went up there with you." And I said, "That's right." And, gee, he says, "You know, Rachel and I were just saying, every time we see you, you're getting in your car to go away on one of these trips or you're coming back from one of them. And I bet you're sick and tired of doing this, aren't you? You know, really, doesn't it get boring doing this same thing day after day after day?" I said, "No, Ed, it's funny you'd think that. Because I found out somewhere along in my life, if you really believe in what you do and you love what you do, then it never gets boring and it never gets tiring. And I'm very much in love with what I do. Because actually I've had the great pleasure of going across this nation and telling the story of its people and its products and its wonderful and exciting way of life. And I'm very much in love with this nation and its people and its great products and exciting life. And if tomorrow morning when you get up you're a little more excited about what we have put together, then our mission will have been completed. And tomorrow morning, speaking of tomorrow mornings, when you get up, you won't think about it. But it'll be just a little tiny bit different than this morning. And this morning when you got up and peeked out your window, you didn't think about it. But it was a little tiny bit different than yesterday. And as those tomorrows very softly unfold, they create an exciting place called the future, a very important place. And that's why we call our program Keeping Pace with Tomorrow, the story of this nation and its people and its products and its wonderful way of life. But let's take a look at our nation today and see how we live. We could fly from San Diego, California to Bangor, Maine, or tomorrow we'd fly from Seattle, Washington to the Gold Coast of Florida. And you fly over a nation of people 205 million strong, free people, free to live where they please, free to work where they please, free to buy from whom they please. In fact, it's actually called the Free Competitive Enterprise System, which means very simply this: you drag your feet, Sam, and get just a little too complacent, and there's somebody else right behind you, ready to stand up and say, "Hey, boy, I think I can do that job better than you can." And of course, if he can, he wins the rich rewards of the free enterprise system. Our banker there calls it net return on your investment. The merchant calls it net profit. Back home where I'm from, we call it cash, the poor man's credit card. Well, anyway, come and say it with us. And get out of the airplane. Get out of the airplane and ride along the concrete highways that link together all these cities of our nation. And if you go slowly enough, you'll see your customers out there. Oh, look at them. There they are. Mr. and Mrs. America. Look at them. In their plaid slacks and bulky sweaters and dirty white sneaker shoes, burning up a $7 steak on a $63 grill in the back of a $28,000 home in a place called Happy Valley, USA. And they're rich, too. Far richer than you might believe. Imagine a nation of people today with personal income, you and I, personal income of $800 billion a year. We only spend about 400 billions in the stores sprinkled around. And one fellow said, "Yeah, my friend, they spend a lot more, but they can't get waited on." Well, anyway, they are rich. I remember the first time I stood at the famous Bahia Mar yacht basin outside Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Ships bobbing and anchor as far as I could see. Our manager was showing me around. He said, "Hey, you see that big white one over there?" I said, "Boy, it's beautiful, isn't it?" "Yeah," he said, "it just sold recently." "Really?" "Yeah," he said, "a rich businessman from Washington came down here and bought it." "Is that right?" "Yeah," he said, "I understand he paid $195,000 for it." "Wow." "Yeah," he said, "I watch that fellow. They fly him down here on his private airplane every Friday night. He sits on that ship all weekend long, drinking martinis mixed up 17-1. No kidding. Gets back on his private plane, flies home to Washington. Some weekends he never even takes the ship away from the dock. How do you like a nation rich enough that a man spends $195,000 on a boat and he doesn't even ride around in it? And the rest of the world looks at us and says, "Yeah, how's it possible you have so much?" They say, "Yeah, I know, Ira, but I'm not interested in statistics, and I know you're not interested in statistics. I'm sure if you're a normal individual, you're saying to yourself, how about me? How could I make more sales? How could I make more profit? How could I get promoted? How could I have a new boat and a new car and a new home? How can I get ahead?" Well, now you're talking about something called success. And of course, to be successful in the free enterprise system, you have to deal with people. We call them customers. Now, I don't know all the customers where you sell your products, but I do know a group of customers back in Dayton, Ohio, that tomorrow will be your customers, perhaps. And that's my family. So I'd like you to meet my family today and see how they live. And perhaps you can benefit by meeting them, to sell more and to get ahead. So come and take a make-believe trip with me back to Dayton, Ohio. When you get there, you'll notice we live 4 miles south of the city. As you drive up, you'll notice we live in a 2-story colonial house. Sits on what I would like to believe is a completely crabgrass-free lawn. First person you'd meet would be my wife, Carol. She's a very busy mother of 3 children and a dog. If she were home, she might likely have on plaid slacks, knit shirt, dirty white sneaker shoes. She jumps in her automobile and deliberately, today, drives past 3 glittering supermarkets to shop at the 4th, the customer's choice. Tomorrow she'll be your customer. Well, you'd also meet her son, Steve, if you came to visit us. Steve's a big guy. If he were home, he might likely have on plaid slacks, knit shirt, dirty white sneaker shoes. This kid's smart. When he was 16, he knew more than I did when I was 36. Since the day he's been born, he's been watching 3 black and white television sets and 1 color job. And he really is smart. Not long ago, he explained the psychological, philosophical, physiological, and economic reason for the generation gap. And the reason I guarantee you he's smart, he's 21 years old and I'm still paying all his bills. 24 months from now, of course, he's your customer. He's a lot different than his grandfather. Well, you'd also meet our daughter, Chris, if you came to visit us. If Chris were home, she might likely have on her plaid slacks, knit shirt, and dirty white sneaker shoes. Terrific kid. Has her own bedroom where she lives. Has pictures of her friends in there. This kid has 199 hair curlers. Puts her hair up and down every 30 minutes. I'm sitting there, she comes down, her hair is out like a great big windswept hay mound. Makes her little old neck look about that big around. 30 minutes later, she comes down, her hair straight as an arrow where she's ironed it on the ironing board. She has pictures of all her friends hanging on her bulletin board, the old pictures from the man from Uncle, new pictures of Gary Puckett and the Union Gap boys, and around the corner where she doesn't think we can see it, she has a life-size picture of Paul Newman snarling at her in his undershirt. She buys her own records and she buys her own hair curlers. She's got money. She babysits. She doesn't babysit for anybody. If you have a color television set friend, you're on her first priority list. 24 months from now, she's Mrs. America, and now she's your customer. Well, of course, you'd also meet our little girl, Jane. Janie's 15, going on 21. Terrific little kid, runs around in plaid slacks, knit shirt, dirty white sneaker shoes. Has her own bedroom where she lives. Pictures all over the wall, hair curlers. She has a stack of records in her bedroom that tall. Every one she plays from downstairs sounds the same. Bump, bump, bump. She used to share her bedroom with something called a Barbie doll. The only reason I mention that is that one Christmas came as a great shock to me when I found out we finally had more money invested in Barbie's clothes than we had invested in mine. They're your customers. And why do they live that way? Why are the plaid slacks and the bulky sweaters and the dirty white sneaker shoes? And what's this with the horn-rimmed glasses and burning up a $7 steak on a $63 grill with a $400 automatic stove in the kitchen sitting idle? Why do we do all this? Well, we did it a day at a time. And if you want to see what the future holds, you don't look way up there like an economist. You look back and you look at Steve and Chris and Jane, and you say, oh, there they come. So let's stop the clock and take a look at them. Maybe you can profit by it. If we stop the clock, turn it back a few years. Steve was about that tall, just a little kid. I'd been away on one of these trips for a week. Man, was I delighted to get home. I drove in the driveway, got my suitcases, started up to the front door. About the time I get to the front door, I noticed Steve's peeping out of the curtain waiting for me. I hit the top step, zoom, he comes running out, screaming at the top of his lungs, am I glad to see you? There's an emergency. I've been waiting for you all week long. We got to go right to the store this very minute. I said, wait a minute, Steve. You mind if I say hello to your mother before I take off on another trip? He said, look, it's an emergency, or I wouldn't tell it's an emergency. Would you have faith in me once? I do what you want me to do. Why don't you ever do what I want to do? Okay? If it's that important, get in the car. This youngster gets in the car. He takes me right where he wants to go. We walk in the store. He picks up this wild ball of fur. There, Dad, that's emergency. That's what I want. I said, what is that, a dead rat? No, it's not a dead rat. That's Davy Crockett's hat. All the kids have them but us. We're the only ones that don't have one. In fact, we couldn't even go out and play this week because we didn't have a Davy Crockett hat. You mean you brought me down in the snarled up traffic for that thing? Yes, sir. Well, buddy, I'm not happy with you. And all I can say is let's get the miserable thing and get out of here. No prices. God, detest people who don't know what their stuff sells for. Excuse me, buddy, how much is that hat? $6. That's right, friend, $6. Had it made special for this high-income group that lives south of the city down here. We got it cheaper when we got one that sells for $1.98, but this is one they all buy. When the world's a difference between a $1.98 hat and a $6 hat, for pity's sakes. You ought to be able to figure that out. $4.02. No, I mean, what do I get for it? I don't know what you get, friend. Maybe the thing's not properly cured and your kid's head will break out with some infectious disease. Give me one of the $6 ones. My boy speaks up there, wait a minute, Dad, we want 3 of them. 3 of them? Yeah, I want one, and Chrissy wants one, and Janie, don't be silly. You get one hat. You wear it today, give it to Chris tomorrow, let it trade it around. No, my boy says we don't want one hat. Always the last one to get anything. Always take all the joy out of everything we want. If we can't have our own hat, we don't want any hat. Just take me home, I'll lock myself in the bedroom till it all blows over. Sorry I even brought you down here now. Well, the psychiatrist said to take care of his innermost wants, so give me 3 of them, fella. You mean all $6 ones? Yeah, the whole works, like 1, 2, 3. And if you don't mind, we just speed it up. I haven't seen my wife for a week, and I would like to get out of here. You remember Davy Crockett? Of course you do. He rang up cash registers around the world, the hundreds of millions of dollars, and Steve put it on, and he ate in it, and he slept in it, and he took a bath in it, and he played in it. One Sunday morning, he tried to sneak in church in it. He never took it off his head. One day, the temperature streaks up to 95 degrees. I look at this kid. Perspiration is drenching down his face. His lips are purple. He's going into shock. They look stupid. It's 95 degrees. Get that hat off before you melt and run down the sewer. Says, are you kidding? You realize when Davy Crockett went down the Alamo, it was 135 degrees? You think I'm going to chicken out at 95 degrees? He could care less. He operates under a subdivision of the word selling and living that everybody in this auditorium operates under. He'd no more go out that morning without his little Davy Crockett hat on than you would have come in here in your red bikini. We live together. We burn up steak together. We wear our fat ties together. And if you want to get all their business, you can get it all together. Of course, Mr. Negative comes up now. Mr. Negative. He'll tell you, he's the guy who'll tell you why nothing will work. Baloney. Just because one guy does something doesn't mean everybody has to do it. I'm a rugged individual myself. I live my life exactly the way I want to live it. About 1% of the time. But this isn't a bad word. Depends on how you look at it. Wouldn't it be nice if we get everybody in this auditorium to take a physical examination once a year? Wouldn't it be nice if we get everybody in this auditorium to put your seatbelts on when you go home? And don't drink if you're going to drive. And tomorrow, say hello to everybody and smile at them. Well, we're not here to preach to you. We're here to show you how to be a little more successful if you're interested. But one of the great shocks of my life was the average guy really isn't interested in success. He pays lip service to it, but deep down in his heart, he's pretty happy right where he is. And he'll justify why he can't do it. That's kid stuff, Ira. I sell insurance to pretty tough men, really. 24 months from now, his name is Stephen Hayes. And if you think Steve buys crazily, you ought to see his father, Ira. Wow. Before we moved to Dayton, Ohio, we used to live on the East Coast. We had a lawnmower back there. Now, you won't remember this lawnmower. You're much too young. But years ago, they had a lawnmower, had a wheel on this side and a wheel on this side. In between those wheels had little steel blades that would go around like this. The faster the wheels would go, the faster the blades would go. Had a piece of wood that came up the middle, another little piece of wood on that piece. That's how you push that lawnmower, just like that. I had one of these lawnmowers. This thing was so quiet, you could cut the grass at 4 o'clock in the morning. Nobody know you're out there. One Saturday, I was out there cutting the grass, thinking to myself, it's a beautiful day, doctor be proud of me, getting some exercise. I come down near the edge of the house where my neighbor lives. He comes roaring around the side of the house, this great big power lawnmower. That son of a gun almost cut off my foot. My neighbor on the other side comes out. He's got a red power mower. He's mowing with marked his. Zoom. His wife's right behind with one marked hers. Zoom, zoom. On the other side of me, my neighbor has one like an automobile. You sit up on a seat with a parasol over your head, and he's driving it all through the trees. Very quietly, I push my lawnmower in my garage. My wife looks out of her automatic kitchen. What's the matter, honey? You sick? Yeah, I'm sick. Sick of this medieval lawnmower. Only not in the neighborhood with a hand lawnmower. Where are you going? Where do you think I'm going? I'm going to buy a power lawnmower. That's where I'm going. A power lawnmower? You only got 2 square feet of grass out there, stupid. Look, Carol, I don't care if I got 1 square foot of grass out there. I am not going to go out there and humiliate myself in front of the whole world with a hand lawnmower, all right? Boy, you spend money like it's gone out of style. Well, honey, don't you worry about me. You keep playing bridge and talking on the phone. I'll live my life. You live your life. It's Saturday morning as I ride through suburbia on my way to a modern store. I notice the type of lawnmowers most of my neighbors are using. I walk into a modern store. Nobody speaks to me anymore. I walk right over to the lawnmower I want. Nothing. I put my foot up on it. Still nothing. I take out my money to let them know I'm not there to exchange something. You realize the only thing we got fighting inflation in this nation is lousy service? It's a free, competitive enterprise system. And while you're sitting here, somebody's out trying to get your business. And while I'm standing here, somebody's trying to get our business. How'd you like to wipe all your competition out overnight? There's a guy that wiped Davy Crockett out overnight. My boy said, Dad, that's what we want. What is that, a bandit? It's not a bandit. That's Zorro. He hates bandits. You never know what's going on. Not only that, everybody has them but us. How much are they, Mac? They're $9 a set. We have a cheaper set. I'll explain the difference. Look, I'm educated. Give me 3 of them and let me get out of here. You remember that? When that hula hoop came out, Janie was about that tall. They were going to pay an advertising man $20,000 to write the operating instructions for the hula hoop. Trouble was, Janie hadn't learned to read yet, and I couldn't interpret them for her. She didn't either one of us. I brought that hula hoop home that first night. She had never seen one with her own eyes. I put it down over her shoulders, never hit the ground. She kept that thing swinging for 11 hours, never missed a turn. The other 2 kids fed her. At night, when she go to bed, I take the hula hoop. I go down my basement with that hula hoop, make sure my windows are closed so my neighbors can't see what I'm trying to do. I'm down there every night of my life, 31 nights in a row. Never got to go around one time. How about you, huh? Tomorrow, she's your customer, sophisticated, educated, better informed, richer, more affluent society. And as you see our society today, it is more affluent. Imagine a nation today, you and your next-door neighbor, buying the astronomical sum of over 5 billion greeting cards a year. When I was a little boy growing up, my father made $12.50 a week. Imagine that. The only thing I ever ate for breakfast in my life was something called oatmeal. It wasn't this instant oatmeal we eat today. This oatmeal my mother would put on the back of the stove, cook all night long. I'd lie in my bed, hear that oatmeal out there cooking. Plop, plop, plop. If I had walked into my mother's kitchen and said, well, Mom, old girl, what do you got for breakfast this morning beside oatmeal? Well, I'm glad you asked. I got it right here with me. Whop up, sit down there and shut up and eat that oatmeal. Today, we still eat oatmeal. But we eat something else beside oatmeal, and so do you. We eat something called dry cereal. And I'm telling you, we got dry cereal. It is a rich nation, and as it changed very quickly, and everything ends. Your home that you're living in today is going to disappear, and you'll move to another one. The job you hold today will end, and you'll move to another one. Every day brings you into the future. A lot of times you don't see it happening. Take cigarettes. 15 years ago, if I had stood up in front of a distinguished audience like this and pulled out a pack of cigarettes with a filter on the end, if I had pulled out a pack of cigarettes with a filter on the end, there would have been somebody way up in the back row would have nudged his neighbor and said, man, they got some sweet boys with NCR. Did you notice he was smoking a woman's cigarette? Today, you see somebody pull out a pack of cigarettes without a filter on the end. Poor old Jack. Hadn't gotten a word yet, still riding him bareback. Well, that didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly. And the tobacco companies noticed little trends developing in their business. You can always tell when a trend develops in your business. You watch your sales record for a few months, and as it goes along in this very forward fashion, eventually you can go to the boss and say, hey, Chief, I'd like to report a little trend developing in our business. What's wrong? Well, I'll tell you what I think's wrong with our cigarette business. I think everybody's changing to these big, long, king-size filtered cigarettes. So what? So what? We don't have one. Well, buddy, we better get one, and we better get it fast. Because that's what we're in business for, to give the customer what they want, not what we want. And they all roared to bring them out. There'd be some 80 of them on the market. You remember their names. Kent with the micronite filter. Marlboro Country. I'd rather fight than switch. Winston tastes good, like a cigarette should. and they battled their way into number 1 and number 2 and number 3 position. And the one that won with those 7 words moved into first position. Number 1. Always number 1. And if you came to visit us in Dayton, Ohio, I think you'd be pleased to see we brush our remaining teeth with Crest. Because unquestionably, Crest is best for remaining teeth. The reason we put this in the program is a few years ago there was no Crest. Today, it outsells every other dentifrice in the USA, number 1. As I said before, there's always number 1. And they got into number 1 in the tobacco industry by keeping in touch with their customers, by telling them their messages over and over and over. And we call it repetition. For them, it's keeping in touch with their customers. For you, it's keeping in touch with your customers. For success, it's repeating over and over the things that make you successful. And eventually, as you repeat these over and over, you will gain an identity. And of course, Janie's hula hoop days were the perfect practice for the miniskirt craze. The skirts were here, and then here, and then here, and then they started to get interesting. When those miniskirts came out, my wife said, "Can you imagine any nut wearing that?" She says, "What do you suppose is going to follow it?" I said, "I am." Of course, they're going down again. Can't have everything. Well, the years went by, and one day my wife said to me, "Hey, have you seen Steve's hair lately?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "How do you explain that?" I said, "Oh, come on, Carol. He put his Davy Crockett hat on permanently, that's all." And they live together, and they burn up steak together. And he's now 19, 20, 21. He's a grown boy. And he says to me one day, "Hey, Dad," he said, "Hey, here I am getting ready to go to college." And he says, "You know, I don't know what I want to do." He said, "I really don't know what I want to do. I don't know whether I want to be a banker or a scientist or a lawyer." I said, "Don't worry, Steve. The first sign of growing up is you're afraid of the future. Don't worry about it. There are 37,000 ways to make a living in this nation. And whatever you pick, if you want to be successful, you can't miss, because there's no competition. Not only that, we got customers right now standing around waving money, trying to get waited on. And we got more customers coming up. In fact, these old gray birds bringing in new customers, one every 15 seconds. They used to come in squadrons. They got them cut down, but it's my own personal belief they are not going to stop these birds from coming. And the reason I know that is most of them come on the wings of enthusiasm. Yeah, that's really the only important word in your life, because without it, you're dead. The first thing you have when you come in, it's the first thing you give up on the way out. Today, we're so rich, it's now unfashionable to be enthusiastic.